Welcome to Coach, a global community for coaching mastery.
Hello there. I'm super excited to welcome everyone to another episode of Coach Podcast, where we dive into what it takes to coach with mastery. My name is Coach Lio. I'm the co-founder of Coach, Global Community of Coaching Mastery. And today I'm extremely excited, and I really mean it, to have on our call today, John. And I'll let John in a second to introduce himself, John Everett. But let me give you a taste of what's to come. With 3 decades of tech sector experience, John is a business and life coach at Coaching Shoes. He is dedicated to helping professionals master business career planning, objectives and goal settings, performance optimization, career transitions, and career change management. Now, John is a really multi-sided and very, very interesting person. And I'll just let it up to you, John, I'd love you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Leo. Well, there's an introduction already. Who am I? So obviously, you know me, John Everett. What I like to always start off with, who am I? I like to actually say, I'm a baby boomer coach. I'm in that bracket. I'm like 62 years of age, and I'm all about what that really means, in regards to how can I use all of that experience into a coaching world. So I'm John Everett. I live in Maastricht, Netherlands. You listening, some of you Brits are probably thinking he's got an English accent. Well, yeah, I am. I've got a UK accent, but I live in the Netherlands, so I'm Mr. Europe. So the 2 children, I've got Max, the oldest one, film director, and Jake, who's special needs. So that's a whole different area of my coaching, which we can go into later. Married to my lovely wife, Caroline, and as I said, I live in the lovely city of Maastricht. So that's me, Leo. That's a little introduction.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John. There's so much into that I'd like to just really dive into. What I heard is you're a baby boomer coach, and I love that term because there's so much playfulness, and there's so much playfulness in what you say, but at the same time, I know that is such a big topic, basically the elephant in the room, that so many people don't talk about. Can you just explore a little bit, like, how can you have that playfulness and energy that you just had when you said that?
Yeah, I think what it is that, I won't talk so much about it in this session, but, there's a reality out there, sort of ageism. And, so I'm kind of, I tip in the baby boom a bit. But I'm also Gen X. And there's a huge change that's going on within the modern day world. And especially for Gen X, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But then changes mean that, our life expectancy is going to be longer. There's every chance that Gen X will get to 90, about 50%, I think, will get to that age. And that's going to kind of change a lot of everything. And what I mean by that is traditional retirement ages, sort of 65, that's going to change because the old retirement models, were based on retiring in early 60s, dying 75. Literally, that was the way it was. But as we start to live longer, there's a whole different discussion that's going to go on around how we're going to live as we come up to the 60s. And coming back to your question is, as I look at myself in the 60s, I'm realizing that I'm going to probably want to work longer, than the traditional retirement age. And that means a whole different thing. So in my coaching, I've really started to explore the fact that what is it to live as you get older with a growth mindset? And that's where it becomes really interesting. And that's really where I am with who I am and what I'm trying to create with Coaching Shoes.
That concept alone, what's it like to nurture a growth mindset in, let's say, in this season of life? I haven't heard many people talking about it, but I'm curious. So I imagine people in this age bracket with that desire, longing to serve further, they probably face a completely unique set of challenges, I imagine. What are those challenges, John, from your experience?
Yeah, so there's going well, what we're going to see, what the expectation is that there's going to be, let's just talk Gen X, yeah. So if you're in your 50s, yeah, the reality today is that there's this complete age of insecurity that we live in, and it's just modern day life, yeah. No one sets out to create it, but just the way that our models are set up, where we have commitments to mortgages, we have a great choice now, more choice than ever. But what comes with that is instability, because the modern day benefits of technology can change things so quickly in the global market. So we all live in this age of, sort of tension and insecurity. And Gen X have got that, sort of more than anyone. So if you're in your 50s and you're looking at, where am I? I'm in my job, I'm in my corporate position, but am I secure? Probably not, because companies can't allow you to be secure. They need, to have continual growth because the market grows. So that growth mindset really comes down to that. If we're looking at, I'm 50 something and I've got to get to 65, it's probably not a good place to be. If you're looking at, I'm 50 and I accept that there is this insecurity, but there's a lot I can do about that. And I can really do a lot about that by switching into what is possible. Yeah, I accept there will be changes, probably within my job, within what I'm being asked to do. But there's nothing to stop us to put our mindset into a growth mindset that we do continuous learning, that we can build our networks, we can keep our mind very agile. Neuroplasticity now is really showing that the mind continues to grow even into our 80s if we use it. So it's all about choice. Am I going to have choice of a growth mindset?
Wow. So it sounds like you help people feel a choice or make empowering choices.
Yeah, I challenge, so when normally if I'm working with the average tech sector worker, could be senior manager or manager, I will always challenge them, to understand that what they are facing and looking to now is just a perception. So within coaching shoes, my company, I'm always about there's different perceptions. Step in your different shoes. Let's look at it from a different place. You got that choice. You just don't realize it. If you step there and you go to a different perception, guess what? Possibilities open up. Yeah. So it's about making people understand what actually really is happening, what resources and tools they have available to them to start that process of moving to a growth mindset.
Yeah. But look, John, real talk. I'm in my 50s. I've had maybe a successful career. Yes, all this new things are popping up. So why not just wrap up life and kind of move towards obscurity and retirement quietly? Why do I still need, why would I need that?
Great question. So there's a statistic at the moment that 56% of employed workers in the 50 age bracket do not have enough pension funds in their plans. It's as simple as that. Some will have enough and will get a retirement, and they have the choice. I can just retire and do nothing. Is that good? I'm not sure. Some will go to retirement and they won't have the choice to retire.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to work beyond. I mean, they've already said in the UK that they think the retirement age will be above 70 as we go into 230. So the retirement age will actually get pushed up. So people won't have that. I mean, some will have the choice, and there's no doubt about it. Yeah? I'm not saying that, but there's this group that won't have that choice. So they're going to have to make that shift in that, mindset to, what am I going to do? How am I going to reskill? Can I reskill? Of course you can. And then there's the third bracket that the group can retire, but don't want to retire. They still want to continue learning. Because don't forget, they're going to live to 90. Yeah. So how do you want to live? Do you want to just retire, break for a year, do nothing? Then what? I'm a bit bored, yeah. But there's going to be different choices. There'll be 3 different groups. Basically, that's where it's going to break to.
Yeah, that's so interesting that and we can see the external factors, the internal factors. And John, you've successfully transitioned from the corporate world. You've had a brilliant run in the corporate world and into coaching. What was it like for you? You took the plunge, you did the transition. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
The transition from corporate career to coach. So I had corporate career till I was 59, and many would say, why not just go on to your retirement age? But the realities is that not all of us have that choice, and I'm quite happy to talk about this point. I went up to the burnout wall. Just the frequency, the continuous pressure, the continuous strain. And it's like a taboo. It is like a taboo in IT. No one wants to talk about it. If you're going to talk about it, oh, I'm in danger. I'm really in danger here. And I actually left it too late before I pivoted to talking with a coach. And even then, when I spoke with a coach, I thought it was therapy. I didn't realize the difference between therapy and coaching. But I needed someone to talk to. But long story short, I did talk, I worked out, I found some great tools. And when I went back in the corporate environment, let's just say the circumstances changed, and we agreed that I would separate from, my organization, which was all okay. They were really good with it. But that left me then with what next? And part of my process, as I was working with a coach, my coach was saying to me, you know what, John, I've long since stopped coaching you. You are coaching me. So why don't you take all this experience from tech sector and use it in a good way, back into, sort of tech sector as a coach yourself. So yeah, I transitioned 2 years, gone through all of the process. It's been light and day is the most easy from that place there to here, that discovery of who I really am and what I need and what tools do I need, to move forward. So it's been a huge change. And in the weirdest way, the people I work with now are a lot of the people back in my old tech sector. And in what I used to do was just massive pressure on results. And guess what I get to do now? I get to actually coach the guys that I worked with, any of that pressure, and to give them the resources to be able to function in that modern day world where them pressures are so big. And it's so rewarding to see the change, to be able to see senior managers that you coach with to the everyday guy that's on, the work floor, getting the benefit of what I went through. I love that. I had a little thing with myself a few years ago when I was on a holiday and I was running. And I realized as I was running, I was saying to myself, I use 80% of my energy each day, negativity, difficult things. And I want to switch that to 80% positive. And here I was 2 years later, 80% positive. So it's been quite the journey, which is just the start of the coaching journey, if I'm being honest. But yeah.
And honestly, the change that you bring in that sector, tech sector, high pressure, is incredible.
Yeah.
And you are a transformational and a leadership coach and you coach people at those level. At that level. Now, burnout is a real word. But you mentioned something so interesting. There's such a taboo around it. So if I am an executive, I'm a tech executive, I stare into the void of the burnout, but I have so many responsibilities. I'm so high up in that position, goals and all of that. How can I start thinking about reaching out to you, to John, with my challenge without looking like I'm weak, without looking like I lost it, or I don't have everything together, or I cannot handle all my responsibilities that I have?
So one of the things that I work really a lot with now with senior execs when I'm coaching them is I always make the comparison of, like, if you look at top level sport and top level business, same pressures, absolutely same pressures. Top level sport, physically, you've got to be in condition, and mentally, that's the differentiator now. Yeah. You know, so when they're working with sports scientists, sports psychologists, whatever they want to term it, the sports coach, it is about getting their maximum performance. And that's absolutely accepted here. On this side, in the sports space, it's actually the smart thing is that you're working with your performance coach, whether in your mind or your body, to be able to deal with the pressure that you're going to be dealing with, whether it's taking that penalty in the World Cup final, you know, or just want to get maximum performance in what you're doing. And this is accepted here. So I always made that comparison. You know, why is it in business, the business leaders think they don't need this level of support with their mind? And a lot of it is just old habits, learned behavior. I'm a leader, I'm tough, I can endure. Yeah. And boy, do they endure. Yeah. They are experts in putting a shield up around themselves to endure. I mean, I spoke with a senior VP a few weeks ago. I said, what do you do to deal? What is your stress strategy? And he said, John, he said, I have one thing that I have to do. He said, if I don't play my one game of tennis per week, he said, I can't get to the end of the week. He said, I start Monday. Without a game of tennis, I can't get there. So I said, well, that's a great strategy. I said, what happens if you get injured? I said, you know, you can't play a game of tennis. How do you function as a VP? So, you know, for me, the key to them is to normalize it, you know, to give, you know, sort of the, you know, the metaphor of here's what's going on over in sport. Why would you not do this in business? And the great thing now is that you're seeing a much greater acceptance of leaders, not only looking at themselves to be able to deal with their pressure, because all the stats really prove that they are the ones that have the main stress. But also, why would you not take a coaching approach to your team? Because everyone needs to be able to perform in a way to deliver their business results. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm starting to see that now that's changing, but it's not changing quick enough and fast enough, in my opinion.
I guess it's not changing as fast as the environment that we live in.
Yeah. I mean, today's demand, modern day world, I mean, in tech, we actually speed up time. Yeah. What do I mean by that? You know, sort of communication. Yeah. So you've got chat, you've got email, you've got now WhatsApp's gone business. Yeah. It started out as like little groups, that's gone business. Phone, well, how would you get a phone call? But in real time, the quicker you respond to the request that comes in, the quicker you speed up time because the expectation speeds up. So, you know, this whole thing of interaction, time, pressure in tech, it just keeps being speeded up. We just keep, you know, so we've got to be able to slow that down and recognize where do we set boundaries? How do we slow down? And how do we get back into creating the number one thing in coaching, space? Without space here, nothing happens. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, it's so true. And to the metaphor that you mentioned about comparing big business with big sports, big business is even more pressure than big sports, because in sports we have the seasons, we have the World Cup, and then usually the athletes will have a break, a month until the next thing. They would have a break. There is no such a break in the big business.
No, it just churns.
It's one long 25-year World Cup pressure.
True. And that's where the problem is. Tunnel vision comes in. You know, there's, you know, when you try to bridge through the stigma barrier, you know, into having a coach or a therapist, you know, it takes, you know, it takes real steps, you know, to be able to get that individual to break out this tunnel vision, because they just, you know, like, there's my work, I have to do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they just head down. It's literally like head down, off I go.
And what happens when you are head down as a leader? What's the price you pay for that?
Yeah, you know, you become blinkered. You will not see the bigger picture. You will not come up to be able to see the bigger landscape, you will lose connection, you know, with your team because you don't have the time. Yeah, you won't be able to communicate as well as what you need to. You lose, and it's a really important one in leadership, is charisma. Having, you know, great leaders have charisma, you know, and as you head down, there's no charisma, there's nothing. So you've got no connect, no communication, no charisma. And they're three of the most important things in true leadership. Yeah.
Wow, so true. And John, you know that I know that you've developed the concept of coaching shoes, coaching, and I thought that's brilliant. And what does it mean? What does it mean, for example, for a leader to be coached according to this approach? So it's two-part question. And the second one, what does it mean to you and to your bigger vision?
Yeah. So coaching shoes, you know, really the essence of coaching shoes come about from a conversation with my mum's neighbour in London. So my mum lives in one of the most toughest neighbourhoods now, Dagenham, and she lives next to this young man. He's got a terribly hard life. You know, I won't go too much into it, but it's really, really tough. And he once asked me, he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, this is what I do." And then he said this great statement to me. He said, "Step into my shoes and look at my life." Yeah. And there was coaching shoes. Yeah. There was, you know, it's about changing perceptions. Yeah. So coming back to your question about leaders, you know, for me, the most important thing with a leader and coaching shoes method is to realize you've got to look at the perceptions. You know, leadership, great leaders can change their perceptions, change their positions. They're great at breaking things down into small components and being able to look at all of the various different angles. So within coaching shoes, I really encourage that. So what I really champion into your second, you know, part of the question is the bigger thing is I've realized that every great leader will probably more or less hit the gym. Yeah, he will go and do some kind of workout, you know, to keep the body in good condition. And that really, all that stuff, really, the physical element of doing this started in the 80s with when before the 80s, we were all slobs. Yeah, we didn't do anything. I mean, it's way before your time, but we you know, basically going down the pub was like quite the norm, cigarettes and all of that. Then came the London Marathon and the Boston Marathon and all of these marathons. And then we all started thinking, oh, we'll get fit. And then that became like the norm now, you know, like all the gyms and everything, that's just the norm. So we all do it. But what we don't do is we don't treat the mind in the same way. We don't realize that, you know, in today's really compressed world, you can't just do the physical element and hope that's enough. No, you've got to be able to do the mental fitness piece, the mental routines that can help you to deal with the modern day questions that are asked to us. So what I do with coaching shoes is I promote and merge the two. So I absolutely try to take the stigma away from anything mental and talk about it as making mental fitness the new cool. Because for me, that is. And it comes back to the sport analogy. When we start to really look at the mental element, and there's so much we can do to help ourselves with our routines.
Yeah.
You know, then we get the win-win scenario. So that's what the coaching shoes for business and its mission is all about, lifting up the awareness. And I will keep talking about it and I will keep putting it out there from what I went through and what I felt, because I now know that with different routines, different habits that you can create within your mind, you get a much greater work-life balance. And most importantly, a much greater performance balance from within the work environment.
Yeah. Wow. It's so, so true. And, you know, most leaders, the biggest thing that they are afraid of is to be perceived as managers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, many leaders do behave like managers and not as leaders.
Yeah.
And being inspiring, being a role model, being someone, as you mentioned, with charisma, it's essential. It's not optional.
Yeah.
It's essential. So why don't leaders pay more attention to that?
Just the truth of it is just the pressure. to succeed, results. And I don't, it's not like I beat up on companies and stuff. That's not what happens. Modern day corporate life is highly, highly competitive. So you want your organization to be competitive. I mean, I've been in organizations, big organizations, where it's not been going well. And that's quite horrible. That brings a whole different level of insecurity to organizations doing well, but the pressure is really on to keep doing well. Yeah. So the great challenge for leaders today, is to be authentic. Is to be authentic in their leadership style. And there's a really interesting, I think it's Gallup poll come out that trust in leadership is at the lowest point within the last 30 years. So if you can't be authentic, you can't have trust, and when you lose trust, then there becomes a gap. And then that impacts the overall, and that impacts everyone. The company becomes less efficient, less profitable. Leaders' lives become quite miserable because they firefight, they run around, and then they lose their authentic way as the pressure comes on to get the results. And then they put that down onto the organization. And then the trust starts to erode. So for me, it's about, when I coach in this space, it's about bringing them back to connect with what is your authentic self. We can talk about your goals, what you need to do. We can talk about the reality where you are. We can talk about your options and then the actions. All of that can only be dealt with when you come in touch with what you need as a leader to be your authentic self. Once you're there, then you're comfortable. You've got a platform, and you'll be able to navigate them pressures that the market creates,
So it's almost like, as a leader, you need the KPI to be yourself, to be centered in who you are, connect to your values, and really utilize that for the greater success of your success and the organization, isn't it?
Yeah. So in coaching, we talk a lot about values. I'm always wrapping around values. I love values, by the way, but I always like to say it's more what is of a value to you. What do you value? Because when you get into that high level of business discussion, it's in their language. You've got to talk to them. So I think one of the great skills in coaching is to be able to talk in their language, and then to be able to adapt our coaching models into their language and their needs. So the value piece, what do you value? Once you start getting into that, it becomes so strong, because that's where they're going to connect. That's where they're going to really connect with their authentic self. And they just haven't given enough time to it. It's almost like, I am going to be a high achiever and I'm going to do it this way. But once they actually stop and they schedule that time for themselves, and then they realize what their real values are, then that then leads into what's their purpose? What's their real purpose? And guess what, Leo? When you ask this question, do you know your purpose? Most say, I ain't got a clue. Do you know what, your mission, your vision? I know what a company mission is. No. Do you know what your mission is? What your vision is, what you really want in life? They get really stuck on that. And it takes a lot of work to get that vision clear and then tapping into that purpose after they've got their values. But once they've got that, boy, have they got a foundation. Because for me, whenever we start in these discussions, I'm always like, right, okay, this is where we kind of want to get to. Yeah, you're somewhere here, but just look at it as steps, to get to there. And what do we need to build in them steps? Well, we need to connect first, a really strong foundation, values, purpose, the vision. Once we first got that, then we can start to build out these next steps, these actions. But that first foundation, that's so important.
Yeah, it's speaking about shoes, is leaders focus a lot on the goals, organizational goals and purpose and mission, vision and values, but it sounds like they're the shoemakers without shoes, not investing time into having their own clarity for their life.
And that comes back.
Without changing, they unlock a completely different level of of performance, mental life performance, everything, isn't it?
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I talk about connect with, leaders. Are you connected enough? And a lot of the time it's like, yeah, and then the big one is, well, do you dare to do the 360? Do you dare to solicit the feedback? Real 360, not 360 that you're forced to do. And then to find out how you're perceived. Because then once you find out how you perceive, then you can start the reconnection process.
Yeah. And obviously this requires a professionally, a professionally set up space and process, and someone like you to guide them through that. And why could you be that person? Is you've been there, and that's where my next question leads, is that if you could go back 3 years with the knowledge you now have as a coach, what would you do differently to lessen the impact of the burnout you went through?
Yeah, I ask myself that question a lot, really a lot, and that, it kind of taps back into, one of the values which I've now really identified is just honesty. Yeah, just being honest with yourself. So you kind of got to look at yourself, like, there's reasons where things happen that lead you to your, to the events. So if I was going back, like if I was going back now 3 years ago, I think the first thing that I would really, really be looking to do different is to look at myself, to step out of that tunnel vision, because I would just come in and I would just head down. Yeah. Here's my goals, here's my objectives, here's my interpretation, and go get it. Yeah. That's not good. Being able to actually say stop, come up a lot, a level, and let's really look around at really where we are. Yeah. So creating the time and the space and the security, so that you can slow down to really properly function. So that was being honest, with yourself. Can I improve? Yes, I needed to improve in certain areas. So that will be one of the things that I'll be really honest, 360, and then really look at the spots that your team and your ecosystem stakeholders are saying, and then start to address it, and then start to follow up, to show that you're addressing, to build trust again. Yeah, so it builds credibility.
Is
I
it
think
possible? What if, I'm sorry for interrupting, but let's imagine that person who feels like at the end of the line, right? You're almost burnt out. You feel like the trust can never be rebuilt. You have this constant continuous pressure on you, and you start maybe losing hope, what's the emergence, like, what if I'm there, if I'm that leader, just give me the 1, 2, 3 I need to do.
Yeah. So, the first thing that you've got to be truthful with the situation. If you leave the situation as is, well, it is going to be a given that you are going to burn out. You will, sort of there's no way that you're going to work your way through that by yourself. Yeah. It's like a gradual downhill. Yeah. It may be slow. So some might happen quicker, some might be longer, but it will happen. So the first thing is you have to accept that you've got to look to yourself and then make a decision of, okay, these pressures are not going to go away. They are events. Yeah. The event will happen every day. The only difference being with yourself is how are you going to respond to that event that will change the outcome. It's not the event, it's how you respond to it. So how do you respond to it? You then have to step back and then look at yourself to say, okay, I can do different things here. And by engaging with a coach to work with you, it begins the process of identification of what's happening, so you can unload. Yeah. So you can actually start to release the stress in a safe environment. And what does that do? That builds trust. Yeah. Once you've got trust, the next thing that comes along is you start to get space as you unload and let this out, and we work together to understand what's happening. It's like your mind is giving space, it's making space. So then what happens as that space happens? you then give yourself the opportunity for other things to come in. Once you've got that space, the most important element, security, comes in. You start to feel more secure and your confidence returns. And then once you're at that point, you create the most important thing. You can start to look at new movement. So what's my direction? What do I need to do now? So they're the steps. It's really 4 steps, 4 distinct steps. But the big thing is to make the first step to actually say, I need to work with someone. And that someone can be an independent coach, not someone within the business you can unload on. There has to be a structure.
Wow, that is very powerful, and I really do hope people pay close attention to the piece where it's okay it's okay to accept that you don't have to figure this one out by yourself, as you do everything else as a leader. And I think that's probably the bias they fall into, because they are used to pressure. They are used to, sorting things out by themselves. They are used to leaders. They are used to uncertainty and handling all that. And I guess that's where the error in thinking might be, is like, well, I've figured out all these things so far. I should be able to figure, so I should be able to figure this one out by myself. But then the price to pay, I guess it's way too high. And with that, John, I'm curious. So have you had a light bulb moment, maybe through your coaching, saying, wow, this one thing will change everything?
What I like to kind of answer that question is the light bulb moment for me. The way I interpreted the light bulb moment was, I always had this thing in my mind. This kid from Dagenham, left school, no qualifications, no nothing, ended up in a director role at Dell in tech. How did that happen? No education, no nothing. How did that happen? My light bulb moment came when I was in the coaching and we were discussing about different personas inside of ourselves. And I realized that earlier in my life, so I'm this kid from Dagenham. My pivot point became, believe it or not, skiing. All the kids play football. I wanted to be a ski teacher. Just thought it was cool, and whatnot. I was lucky enough to get a grant from Dagenham to actually go and pursue all these skiing qualifications. I could actually ski quite well, by the way, because we had a dry slope. But I did that and I was so enthusiastic. I was so dedicated. And guess what? I got the qualifications, started going around the world, and my life started changing because I started meeting different people. But so when I was doing this coaching piece about different personas, I realized that when I was in this skiing mode, I used to feel like I had this little pilot light that was inside of me. Come October, it would just go like these big flames, and that would last. It would really, really, and I could feel it like anything. And when we're looking at personas, I realized I had this persona in me called Burning Man, and it was that, But what I really realized, a light bulb moment, was what created that burning sensation. And it was when I'm enthusiastic about something and when I get really dedicated. When them two things come together, I seem to be able to make things really happen. And that was how I ended up becoming this person in Dell in this role. And that was my light bulb moment, was realizing that we've all got different personalities inside of us. And we use them and we don't even realize we're using them. And in coaching, if you can tap into what they are and realize where they're coming from, then that becomes such a strong resource and tool as you move forward in whatever direction you choose to go.
Yeah. Wow.
That's my light bulb.
And we imagine all these leaders, if they would just allow themselves to be assisted and to step into that space to uncover all those inner resources.
Yeah. That's the difficult bit, because the leadership role will develop. There's a machonism, across both female and male, female. It's just comes with the territory. But the more you can dig into what that means, and then they recognize that and connect to it, and then get resonance with that, then that becomes very, very powerful. Once they start to understand that, then they can invoke it in certain circumstances as I'm going to need. Because it's not just one, there can be many. I mean, I've got Burning Man, I've got Rising Man, because I've been knocked down so many times, but I always know if I get knocked down, I will always get back up. It's just, I just know it's just there in me. And I found another one, which I think is really interesting, is what I call my Captain Jack. It's just it's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
You know, like the Captain Jack Sparrow, and he's just swinging around on this bloody rope on this ship. He knows he's going to land somewhere okay. He's totally, and he does generally. Yeah. That's me trying to be creative, trying to get out there, trying to do different things and not being afraid, to swing around that rope and see where it's going to just throw me. I know I'm going to land somewhere on my feet.
And don't we all want to swing on that rope? But life happens and fears accumulate and responsibilities and all of those things. And how to break the cycle?
Yeah. Then it's back into the personas. Yeah. There's certain types and times that I will recognize when I think I need something. Yeah. So, the Burning Man one is a great example. Yeah. When I need dedication, enthusiasm, if I'm on a new project, just take coaching now with coaching shoes. I've got to be dedicated. I've got to have that enthusiasm. I've got to have that feeling, because there's such a massive interconnect from the great pool of coaches that are out there and the massive need. There's kind of like, we're still not got what I call our banking moment, yeah, our Elon Musk moment, when Elon Musk converted banking with PayPal, took it online. He made it easy. He made it easy to connect. If you look at online banking now, it's so easy. Every bank, everyone, and we've got the same thing, I think, within coaching, is that we've got such a huge pool of resources with real specialization. And there's this huge need, what is it? 63% of people are either stressed or on the point of burnout, is the latest stat. We've got to get that interconnect. And that's the, sort of the coaching shoes, where I need the dedication, and the enthusiasm to bridge that gap. Have I got the solution? No, but I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to get there.
I love that word, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
There's so much there. What's it like to lead with enthusiasm?
That's lovely. Yeah. I can put that into, I said, like, my previous life was like 80% negativity, having to do with difficult things, challenging things, to 90% or 80% good energy. When you're in that place, enthusiasm is really, really easy. Yeah. When you're in our world, coaching world, gone from corporate to entrepreneur world. And in that entrepreneur interconnect, there's so much enthusiasm, so much creativity, there's so much going on in there. It's just wonderful. And it's very easy to step into that enthusiasm, as I say, to trigger off them flames inside of yourself.
Yeah.
If you're open for that. Yeah.
Yeah. About openness, it's so interesting. Because you have this unique combination between having so much experience, life experience, you've reached the peaks of the corporate, and you know what's it like to think, the thoughts. So I'll invite you a little chat, and it can be a fire, like a rapid fire. What, as an executive, I'm the executive, what are the thoughts that are going to stop me from reaching out and making that shift, hiring a coach or opening that door for change? What is it that I'm telling myself actively right now that stops me from taking that step?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is universal in all of us, yeah, is that inner voice. Every one of us got an inner voice. It talks to us in different ways, depending on our, our makeup, our genetic makeup, our experiences, our environment. And that voice will talk in different ways. And in corporate terms, that voice can be quite critical, and it can almost be overwhelming. You don't need this. You're too strong. Like, what a shape up. Show some backbone. Like, how did your father ever go through the 40s? Like, all of this stuff kind of goes on. But the truth of it is, it's very destructive, the voice. You know, they can call it inner critic, saboteur. You know, it's got many different names, but it's always at work. And it's being able to recognize that, you know, this is fine. You know, this is not a terrible thing. It's our instinct for survival from, you know, our evolution as human beings. Step outside a cave. You know, if you've not got this, something big would eat you. But now, today's world, it lives in its own form. Yeah. And it looks around for anxiety, difficult things, you know, and it judges basically. Yeah. It's like a big judge, just judging. And it's being able to recognize when that's at work, you know, being able to quieten that down. Once you realize that's quieting down, and then letting this other side, logical side, start to work. Why would you not, as an executive, why would you not want to get peak performance from yourself? Why would you not want to get peak performance from your teams? Why would you not want to get a better balance? As you said, business keeps grinding, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. Yeah. Why would you not engage in that process when you know that's going to be a win for the company, a win for yourself, and a win for your employees? That's going to allow you to be then your authentic best self, and then you're going to have the trust back. It's like a win-win, but it's recognizing, you know, I've got this voice at work in my head. That'd be my question to the execs. What's that voice telling you? Yeah? Are you brave enough to quieten that voice?
And it's also, is that a good advisor, right? Is that a good advisor? Why do leaders rely on that negative voice advisor in their head? They're so good at identifying good members of their team, and they're so keen on identifying the people that, you know, the people who come up with new ideas. They're not afraid being challenged. But when it comes to this inner critic, leaders don't really challenge their own inner critic, just kind of, they have all the skills for their team. They use that, but they don't really do that, challenge that in a voice.
Yeah, because they absolutely believe. Sometimes you don't even know it's at work. I mean, that's the big danger. Yeah, you do not even know it's working. So you have some of the greatest, most strongest leaders, really, really in their mind, they're leading from the front, they're setting excellence, they're doing all of their steps. But what they don't realize is that what they're projecting out into their other teams. An example could be a leader that will not listen to feedback because he feels he already knows the answer. Yeah? So is he tapping into all of what he could tap into? No. But he doesn't, he's not aware of this. Yeah, this is like, you know, it's hidden somewhere in his psyche, and he's so convinced. And it's only when there comes a pivotal point when he looks and like, my leaders are not, or my senior managers are not talking back to me. And then it's like, well, yeah, because this guy in here has become so strong, you're so overruling that he's not allowing you to step back and to look at what could I really do to be the kind of true leader I really want to be. So this is not always obvious.
You know, and the tragedy is that most of the times your team is aware of that.
Yeah.
You are the only, honestly, I find it the most heartbreaking when the team is aware of that, but you are not aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, in all fairness here, because the majority of leaders are great leaders, yeah, they're good leaders. And when they do come into a coaching session, they generally will say that, okay, I got 1 hour for this. I want to get the maximum out of this. Yeah. So then when you're in that stage of, okay, you know, when was the last time you really solicited feedback? You know, let's look at your goals. Let's take an example. Let's look at your goals. You know, what's your main goals? Yeah. Okay. This. Okay. You know, sort of when did you solicit your feedback on how you're performing to them goals from your team? Once they start to open up and admit that they will let judgment come in to be able to understand the perception that they are generating out, that's the point when you can start to work, because then you can then start to link with what is the development area, if you want, you know, to, you know, sort of what is their light bulb moment is, I'd not realized that. Maybe it is that I've not been communicating at the right way with the teams.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was being charismatic when I was telling everyone, tweeting away to this, and it was sending the wrong message. But it's
Yeah.
only when you're honest, and that comes back, will be coming back to the value piece. Once they've connected with what is their values, then you can bring in these other pieces. Well, how do you measure yourself? If that's a value, how do you measure yourself to doing what they are saying? Are you? And normally, I mean, yeah, it might be a 1 or a 2 if it's a scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we can begin to work.
Yeah. Yeah, those are important, and I love the truth. You're speaking to the truth from your experience, and having that unique combination of experience, of having been in those shoes and now being in different shoes, but having those two perspectives, just such a powerful strength. And I can't imagine how much value you know, your clients are getting from working with you. And John, I'm curious. Now we're going to take a hard left because we're almost at the end of this interview. We have 3 questions literally. So if we can go quickly through this question. So my first question of this piece, the closing piece, would be, just before we started this interview, you said something interesting, and I'm going to surprise you there. You said, I did my mental fitness things, right?
Yeah.
So you said, I'm ready. I did my mental fitness things. And I was just so curious, what are those secret mental things that you do? What is a coach at your level does every morning to have that fitness thing, to show up the way you show up?
Yeah. So here's the, so here's the real John Everett. Yeah. I wake up some mornings and I feel like crap sometimes. Yeah. Here's the truth of it. Yeah. I don't wake up feeling, like, yippee, I'm great. No, I wake up like shit, man. It's a reality. But the most important thing is that, the routines. Yeah. So the first thing that I really always try to do is, this sounds a bit like, it's almost like holy poly, but it is really true. It's a gratefulness level. Sometimes you just got to remind yourself a little bit of gratitude about what you have and where you are, because most of us have got every reason to be grateful for something. Yeah, to be able just to connect the energy back to 3 to 4 things that you're grateful for. Yeah, so sometimes I just get out of bed and I just remind myself. Could be like, it could literally be raining for 7 months in the Netherlands. It's a sunny day. That's good. Yeah, but you start immediately by putting your frame of mind to positive things. Yeah, I will always, if I'm training, I will always remind myself, and I will go back into, and my purpose in life, is a quite simple one. It's like I try to live my life on the front foot and not on the back foot. Why? Because I've been through a lot with my son because he's handicapped. And I realized that when you live your life on the front foot, or you try to live your life on the front foot, that's where solutions are. So I always take myself back into that. Am I in front foot thinking? Am I looking for solutions? And in the day, there's going to be things that are going to be happening, with the tasks and the work. Am I in that right frame of mind? So I'm actually measuring myself, putting myself into that place. Around your work day, your habit. It's a big mental fitness exercise, is how do you structure yourself? How do you make boundaries in your day? So what one of the main things that I always try to do, I try to remind myself, because I've done agile leadership, agile coaching. I pride myself on being an agile leader now. And what I mean by that is being flexible, being balanced, being structured. But I like to structure my days in a way that I will work in 30-minute blocks. So I set my day up. So I set boundaries, and then I say, right, okay, I've got this task. It's a biggie. It's a painful one. 30 minutes. Let's see where I get working revision. I've got it working, and I'll come back to it after that 30 minutes till I'm not completed. So I bring a structure that fits me. So through that exercise, that structure, I've then gone from I've got to do got to energy. Yeah, I've got to do that to I want to. Yeah, there's a big difference. You say it, I got to,
I
I've
got
got to do. Yeah, to I want to.
Oh, I want to. Yeah.
Yeah, look at the difference, yeah. But you've got to bring yourself into that energy. So there's many, many different ways of doing them exercises. you know, but the core of it is that you have to be realizing that the mind, when it's left to itself, when you're tired, when you wake up, your sugar levels are low, yeah, just physically low. So at that point, to change the tempo of the day, be grateful for certain things, yeah, bring structure into your day. Be
That is, you know, and I'm sure you have a wealth of mental fitness, but I love this. I love this term. You know, as you say, I start my day with mental fitness, and just even having that statement, it's incredible. It sounds like from there you're building everything from there, from this mental fitness perspective.
yeah, it's just remember it's habit forming.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. If I can put it in a one word, habit. Because if you think, allow your mind to think into negative mode, allow this inner voice to take over, that becomes habit and that becomes hard to break. Yeah. When you start to think in a grateful mode, when you start to think in a positive mode, but when you take gratitude, you start to build the habit of gratitude. You start to build different habits about where the mind resets to. That's really mental fitness.
I love that. Second to last question. What's next for John Everett and the coaching shoes?
So, where I am now, I'm actually looking to develop broader group themes. So I do a lot of one-to-one coaching, we'll continue to do that, executive level coaching, you know, sort of basically tech sector as a whole, you know, so it's not just leadership, you know, sort of go right down through the whole work stack. Yeah, I'll continue to do that because that's, you know, big passion there. But the next big thing for me is really, I'm going to tackle the theme of ageless agility. That's my next big one, because that's where I feel is the biggest need, you know, to be able to come back into that Gen X. And how do you promote, you know, that change into that growth mindset that they're going to need? So from Coaching Shoes, you're going to see me talking more, offering online courses around ageless agility and how to act within that age and how to adapt and how to basically have the resources and the choice to how you want to go through into the 60s and into that retirement period and that next stage of your life. Yeah, so ageless agility is what you're going to hear from me next.
Beautiful, beautiful. And again, I have not here this topic discussed a lot at all, and it's a very important one. And John, the last question is, if you had a coaching wish, what would it be?
Coaching wish, what would it be? The interconnect, Elon Musk moment. That's my wish. You know, I know that there's all of these coaches out there with real skill and real specialization. And we have such need to engage them coaches. You know, my wish is that we can create that Elon Musk banking moment where it becomes just easy to connect. You know, if you need to go and speak with someone, it's easy as just to go, and then I've got someone with my specialization who I can link into to begin my discussions, begin my coaching journey. Yeah, that would be it.
And the easiest moment, the Elon Musk moment of this conversation is just to reach out to John. You know, me as a coach, I've learned so much within this hour together, learning about your passion for this particular topic, where for the ageless mental agility and all the mental fitness that you do, and the reality of where leadership is and what it could be. It's incredible. I just want to thank you so much we could continue this conversation for another hour, but I'm aware of your time. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. And I do hope that that Elon Musk moment occurs soon enough.
Yeah, I think we could do it with Coach.
Amazing. That is the intention. John, thank you so much again. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
This recording was offered to you by Coach, a global community for coaching mastery.